Madam Secretary, you want to go ahead and call roll?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Ana Armenta. I am the Arizona Racing Commission Secretary. Today is April 20th, 2023, the 700th Arizona Racing Commission regular meeting taking place via Google Meets, and I will do the roll call. Chair Coolidge,
Present.
Vice Chair Olson,
Present.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Here.
Commissioner York.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. It is now 10:01 a.m. and the floor is all yours, Chair Coolidge.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll call to order the 710th Arizona Racing Commission meeting of April 20th, 2023. Jumping right into things as we have a lot to do. We'll go into action items B1, the change of ownership and name of Turf Paradise's off-track betting facility, The Nest in Glendale, to Rick's on 95th Avenue, and we'll jump right into it. Any notations from the department as a whole? Mr. Duncan or?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I want to note is they have all been licensed. The new owners have been licensed.
And it looks like we have all the documentation on our end. Any questions from my commissioners? Otherwise, I will move that we go ahead and approve the change of ownership and name for Turf Paradise's off-track betting facility, The Nest in Glendale, to Rick's on 95th Avenue.
Second.
Madam Secretary.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by, I did not catch that. Was that Commissioner York?
Yes.
Okay. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4. Thank you. That motion passes.
I think it will drop down to B2. Sorry. We'll drop down to B2, Arizona Racing Commission steward approval pursuant to ARS 5-106J. Mr. Director, do you have an update for us there? Or Mr. Duncan?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You did receive in your packet all the steward approval letters from the director, Casillas, granting approval to perform all the authorized duties of a steward at the Arizona racing tracks. We do have for the state of Arizona, working as a steward, Carlos Partita, Donald Roush, Jason Hart, and Johnny Ward. And then on behalf of the Permittee and Association, we do have John Adams and Violet Smith.
Thank you, sir. Just flipping through these. Okay. I'll go ahead and move that we approve the Arizona Racing Commission stewards pursuant to ARS 5-106J.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner French Contreras. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4. Thank you. That motion passes.
We'll drop down to B3, the determination of continued operation of Arizona Downs OTBs pursuant to ARS 5-111 and ARS 5-112. Discussion and determination of action of Arizona Downs ongoing race permit. Before we move forward, I know that we've had a lot of conversations with this in the previous meeting, identifying the concern about not racing in general, and then not racing and operating OTBs, and the handle that is impacted if we keep OTBs on or off. I'd love to hear feedback from Director Casillas as far as what we have learned since the last commission meeting and any suggestions as far as the department. While we're waiting on him, Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, if we could also have the Assistant Attorney General remind us what our approved motion was from the last meeting, the language of that, and so that we can understand the director's update in that context.
Do we have a Assistant Attorney General on the line?
Chair Coolidge, Val Marciano, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Commissioner York, in response to your question, I would ask that the racing chairman, racing secretary could repeat or phrase that. I don't have the language specifically in front of me.
Stand by. I'm trying to pull that out. You're asking for the previous language?
Yeah, because I recall that we voted and approved a motion last time. I believe it was a conditional motion if the department didn't receive documentation. But I just want to understand and refresh my memory the exact language that we approved.
Mr. Chairman, may I address that?
I would appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Commissioner Olson, in the last meeting, Chairman Coolidge directed the division that if the Arizona Downs did not submit the requested documentation, live race stage, and their financials by March 31st to render an intent to suspend their permit.
Thank you, Director. Do you have an update on the status of that?
Yes, ma'am. Arizona Downs did submit a letter and some updated financials on March 31st. However, based on the letter and the updated financials, Mr. Author, Dave Author, basically gave some information that they do not intend to run a race meet summer of 23. However, they did plan to run a race meet in 2024 and provided some dates of what they would propose as live race dates in 24. However, regarding their financial update information, they made it very clear that I'll read to you as what was stated in the letter. Hang on one. Mr. Author basically stated that if the commission does not enforce ARS 5111 and ARS 5112, and they were able to receive the OTB revenue, that even with that revenue coming in for the race meet in 2024, they would still have a revenue shortfall and would have to rely on the Arizona legislature to provide them additional funding be able to run the race meet in 2024. So that was Mr. Dave Author's response to the department, and then looking at their financials, it clearly showed that they would be having a shortfall in revenue for the proposed 2024 race meet. Although they did submit a letter and updated financials, the department still feels that there's violations going on of the statute regarding ARS 5111. It requires wagering shall be conducted by permittee and by parimutuel wagering, and only on the date for which the racing or dark day simulcasting has been authorized by the commission. Additionally, under ARS 5112B, the department, on request by the permittee, may grant permission for electronic televised simulcast of horse races to be received by the permittee, and the simulcast shall be received at a racetrack enclosure at which authorized racing has been conducted, whether or not posted race dates have been offered for the time of the simulcast is received. Bottom line is that the permittee, in order to have additional wagering facilities and simulcasting, have to run a live race meet. The Arizona Downs states that there was a live racing that was conducted for fiscal year 22, which was a crossover. Permits are issued based on calendar year, not fiscal year. Fiscal year is basically relating to the state's budget years, not by statute or by what permits are issued on. So bottom line is that there's concerns regarding the ongoing operation of OTVs without running live racing. It's going to open the door to quite a bit of difficulty if this is allowed to continue. Happy to answer any additional questions if you have any.
Thank you for the overview. Do we have the authors on the line?
Yes, you do.
So just so that I'm clear, we are not planning on running a 2023 meet.
We are not planning on running a 2023 meet unless Turf Paradise closes and the OTB system is allocated 100% to Arizona Downs race later in the year.
Appreciate
And
that.
that's at least part of it. If you want me to respond to what Director Casillas said, I'd be glad to do that. Would you like me to?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, everything we've ever done on this as a track has been fiscal year based. In fact, our meet runs between 2 fiscal years, and that was the reason why we had difficulty all the time getting approvals for a full meet, because it ended up getting cut between June and July when the new fiscal year occurred. So that's why we indicated that we would run in the next fiscal year or the end of the existing fiscal year. Secondly, we are the presentation that we made that you asked us to make and to respond to the letter from the division laid out precisely with documentation and projections that we would have the funding to run in next year, which was the end of this current fiscal year and the start of the next fiscal year, but that currently we would not have the funding to run right now. And the reason that we've been telling you for 3 or 4 years that the funding is drying up is because the commission continues to refuse to enforce the existing statutes that say that the OTB system should be divided between Arizona Downs and Turf Paradise on the basis of when the meets run. And we've tried to get that accomplished, have been able to do that. And with the passage of Sportsbook and the continued success of Indian gaming, horse racing revenue for us is slowly drying up. Similarly, we've tried to get the expansion of our OTB system, but Commissioner Coolidge has consistently voted down the expansion of our OTB system. We have been able to conclude a deal with Monarch with respect to getting the Monarch signal. And we have been able to conclude a deal with, or not conclude a deal, but sign a contract with Stronach to sell the track. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So, but when it happens, we will continue to have a horse track, and Turf Paradise will be a warehouse or a mixed-use opportunity for somebody. So it makes no sense for us makes no sense for the commission to determine at this point that they want to shut down Arizona Downs and the OTB system without having any fallback and basically terminating horse racing in Arizona when Turf Paradise sells. So we have a couple of other speakers with respect to the legal issues, but I can say there's nothing in the statutes 511 or 512 that specifically says that one has to run a meet every year in order to have an OTB system. We had an OTB system in 2018 when we bought the track, and we didn't run until 2019. So there's no reason why it has to be that way. In fact, there's no reason why you couldn't run every other year if that's the economic situation that we're faced with for horse racing, or every 2 years or every 3 years. It's just the reality of horse racing in Arizona at this time when we've been starved of our OTB income while we've been racing. So I believe I've covered what Director Casillas has indicated. If anybody has any questions of me or our council, certainly available to answer those.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from my commissioners? If none, Commissioner York, go ahead.
I don't know if this question is appropriate at this time, so we can table it if it's not, but excuse me. In the April 10th letter from Mr. Tom Author, he stated in the first paragraph that he was scheduled to meet with Director Johnson on the 18th of April. I wanted to know if that meeting happened. If so, what was the outcome?
May I respond?
Sure.
Chairman. We did meet with the director. We met with Director Casillas. We met with their legislative liaison, and we met with their council. And we explained all of the issues that we've talked to you about today. And their response was, from a constitutional standpoint, the decision is in the hands of the commission. The director, the gaming department provides advice, administrative issues, administrative help, etc., and presents that information to the commission, and it's up to the commission ultimately to make the decision. We also discussed with them the prospect of somebody taking our signal or taking our permit obviously would require a statutory notice and opportunity to be heard with a hearing. We didn't get very deeply into that. Perhaps Director Casillas can remind me of some other, if there's any other discussions that we had. They indicated that they thought we were violating a statute, and we asked them what statute it was, It was presented as 512B D, and yet that only applies to populations of 700,000, but less than 1,000,005. And the section that Director Casillas just read was 512B. And once again, that deals with counties of 1,500,000 persons or more. So we don't see any statutory mandate that one has to run in order to have the OTB system. In fact, it's a requirement that we have the OTB system so that we can run the following year. Otherwise, there will be no money next year for purses that we accumulate during this year. And again, we're not trying to get rich. We're losing money on our OTB system. We're just trying to accumulate money for the next meet. Accumulate purses for the next meet. And may I say one other thing? I see there's some messages from the horsemen. The horsemen potentially are upset that we don't run this year, but I don't know. Nobody ran until we opened 5 years ago, and we spent $16-17 million getting this thing set up, and yet the horsemen are upset that we may skip 1 year, and yet we ran for 3 years when they had zero activity up at Yavapai Downs. So I'm sorry we won't be able to do it this year, but we just can't go into any greater debt, than we are right now, and need to take a year off. And again, if the Stronach deal goes through, they intend to improve the track substantially, and we want to give them a chance to do that. So, Commissioner York, that is a long answer to maybe a short question, but is there anything else I could tell you?
If you could elaborate, please, a little bit more on a statement you just made about, and I wasn't involved with the commission, so if you could bridge the gap for me. I want to make sure I understand. You said that you were permitted initially in 2018, but you didn't run until 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, we bought the track in January of 2018, and during all of 2018, or a lot of the year, we were fixing things up at the track, and we opened our first OTB at the track, and we received a OTB permit in June of 2018. We opened the simulcast room at the track in July of 2018, and we started accumulating purses just like we're trying to do right now. And we ran our first race in Memorial Day weekend of 2019. And as a result, we were able to accumulate those purses and run a meet. So that's the reality of what we had to do.
Okay.
It's a similar request here.
Okay, let me just repeat it back. So January of 2018, you were permitted, first OTB June of 2018, first live race in May of 2019.
January of 2018, we bought it. We were permitted in June of 2018.
Okay, that was the permit as well.
We opened our first OTB in July of
Okay.
2018. By the end of the year, we had 4 or 5 of them open.
Okay,
And we
thank
didn't run until May of 19.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, this is Jerry Sims. Can I comment because there was reference made to Turf Paradise not running?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. 2 things. Number one, the new owner has indicated he's met with the department. He is running a race meet. So that is what we've all been told, and he's doing all that, lining up staff of mine and so he is running a meet. Number one. Number two, there's a law from 1981 went to the appellate court, and director's aware of it. Some of you commissioners may be aware of it, but it says that all tracks have to be treated equal. If they're going to be allowed to run without just OTBs, without running a meet, we at Turf, whether it's me or the new owner, don't have to run a meet. we have to be afforded we have to be treated exactly the same way. And it's unfair for that to occur and for that not, and that's the law. And so we expect to go by that law. So I just want to be sure everybody's aware of that,
Thank you,
that
sir.
we expect the same treatment. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments before I give mine?
Well, I met with the director a couple of days ago, and he did not indicate that, and he said he hasn't had his meeting yet with Mr. Watson. So I don't really know if it's accurate what Mr. Sims just said, but whether they run or not, they're not going to be around very much longer. And secondly, if Turf Paradise announces that it's closing, it would be a silly decision to say, oh, but we're going to we're not going to still want to have our OTB income. That doesn't make any sense, but I'll defer to Mr. Langhofer now, if that's where you're headed now, Chuck.
I don't have him signed to speak on my document, but Mr. Langhofer, why don't you take 3 minutes and give us what you got?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few points here. First, I think obviously everyone would prefer it if Arizona Downs were able to run a meet this summer. That'd be better for Arizona Downs, be better for the horsemen. The fact is they don't have the money for it, and so it's not an option. If we take away the OTB revenue, just as a practical matter before we get to the legal points, if we take away the OTB revenue and say OTBs are only available for people who are running meets, well, soon it appears Turf won't be running meets. Arizona Downs can't run meets without the OTB revenue continuing. It won't be able to run one in 2024. That means there's no more horse racing in Arizona. This is a bad spot we're in, but it's sort of a bridge, I think, we've got to figure out a bridge from here to a steady state where we've got, it appears there will be only long-term, only one track left in Arizona. It has the OTB revenue and it kind of, perpetuates, right? You've got the revenues funding the meets and vice versa. So as a practical matter, this is not what we want, but I think we can figure out a bridge to a steady state long-term. Legally, the statute requiring you to run the meet, if you're going to do the OTB revenues, have the OTB sites, doesn't apply to Yavapai County because its population is so small. And if we're going to take away the OTB revenue from Arizona Downs, it really needs the due process followed. It needs notice of the decision. It needs a fair hearing, evidentiary record created on that. It doesn't happen in a hearing like this. In a meeting like this, of course, has to be administrative procedure. So if we're going to go down this path, we'd ask you to give us notice, give us a fair hearing so we can present our evidence and legal arguments. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Open it up to my commissioners for anything else. Mr. Author, I'll give you another minute, but I don't want to go back and forth.
Sorry, Chairman, this is Tom Author. I think I'm on the list to speak.
Go ahead, sir.
Not Dave. A couple things. One, Director Casillas mentioned that we operate under a calendar year. I just don't think that's true, and I'd offer him the opportunity to correct that. But I know back in April of 2021, he told the commissioners Arizona Downs would have to shut down June 30th because their meet crossed over fiscal years. As you'll recall, in the midst of our meet, we always need to update our permit because we operate from June to from July to June. So we have operated fiscal year. We did run fiscal 23. We have proposed running on fiscal 24. As far as the uncertainty associated with turf, we're not rooting for turf running or not running. We're just saying as a practical matter, there's a new buyer and that buyer may decide when they close, we're not going to run anymore. At which point in April 10th letter, I mentioned that we would consider running. So that would enable us to run this year. I think we're barely a quarter of the way through the year with a lot of uncertainty moving forward. I think the prudent thing to do is just wait and see what happens with turf. August 15th, I believe, is the closing date. And then if they decide they're not going to run or they let their permit lapse, then we're there to run. If they don't, then you can deal with us. But again, it's all caused by the refusal of this commission, everybody over the years, to enforce 512C, which says a permittee offering pari-mutuel wagering on simulcast racing at any additional wagering facility used by permittee for handling wagering subsection A during a permittee's racing meet. That's the way it's always done in the past. We've tried and tried for 5 years to get the commission to agree. Yes, you only get the signal during your meet, not and it's never been enforced. And yet Director Casillas just rattled off 5111A and 512B, but he stopped short at 512C. It's a statute. So you're selectively enforcing these statutes without enforcing 512C. If 512C was enforced as the law says it should, all of this stuff would be gone. There'd be no 60-mile rule question. There'd be no, gee, you don't get the signal if you don't run, any of that crazy stuff. That all becomes necessary because of the lack of enforcing that. So, I just don't know why. We're the track that's going to be around years down the road. I don't know why suddenly this haste in penalizing us when, we're only a quarter way through the year. A lot can happen. It's a very uncertain year. I think the most likely scenario is turf sells and these guys decide not to run, and we're there. If they run, deal with us then. But I think it's premature to do anything punitive to us until we know what the future lies. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bornoni, I'll give you the same courtesy as Mr. Langhoffer. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I'd like to comment briefly for Turf Paradise since they're directly impacted by this decision. Under the statutory scheme, the Commission may give guidance, but this is a matter for the racing division. It's their obligation to enforce the statutory law. And you've heard Mr. Casillas' interpretation of the law. And he's correct. There's no authority to allow Arizona Downs to operate OTBs if they're not conducting a meet. I thought Mr. Author agreed with this at the last meeting. Under the racing statutes, permits are granted for specific racing dates. If there are no dates, there's no racing permit. That's ARS 5110. Without a permit, there's no authority to receive simulcast signals and no authority to operate additional wagering facilities. That's 5111 and 12. The regulations are to the same effect under R9, 19 to 14, 419. A permittee is also required to show financial ability to conduct a racing meet. Mr. Author told us last month that unless 3 million flew in the window, Arizona Downs could not conduct a meet. They posit that perhaps the new buyer will have the financial capacity to conduct a meet in 2024, but permits are not transferable under 5107. If the purchase goes through, it will be up to the buyer to apply for a permit on its own merits. Under the Arizona case law referenced by Mr. Sims, there's an Arizona Downs decision, 1981. It's unconstitutional for a statute to give special or exclusive privileges. You can't interpret a statute in an unconstitutional manner. If Arizona Downs is allowed to operate OTBs without conducting a racing meet, Turf Paradise would have the same, should have the same privilege, or any third party could enter the market and operate OTBs. Under the statutory scheme, the revenue from simulcasting and operating additional wagering facilities is intended to defray the cost of conducting a live meet. That's implicit in the Arizona statutes. It's explicit in the IHA. It's not reasonable or fair to Turf Paradise to divert revenue from this market without providing a live racing venue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Any other notes for my commissioners?
I would just like to move to confer with counsel in an executive session.
That's a motion to executive session. I'll second that.
Thank you. With the motion from Commissioner York and a second by Chair Coolidge, I will take the roll call. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Chair, if I may, based on today's conversation, I may have a potential conflict, so I'm going to abstain from the vote in the executive session today.
okay. Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
thank you. The time is 10:36 a.m. and the meeting will move to executive session.
No, there is no citation for that.
Looks like we have everyone back. Chair, would you like me to take roll call?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Coolidge,
Present.
Vice Chair Olson,
Present.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Here.
Commissioner York.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. It is now 11:21 a.m. and the floor is yours, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I issue my comments, I'll open it up to the floor for my fellow commissioners. Okay, well, I'll issue my comments. My concern here, and the thing that really struck me today is the comments about maybe we race once every 3 years and, going back and forth about how often we're going to race and when we're going to race. I was very clear last month that I would not support the operation of off-track betting locations if we are not running meets. The whole purpose of having an off-track betting location is a perk of running live meets. Now, I realize that there are 2 new people purchasing these locations that we don't know. We haven't had any workings with. We're trying to bend rules so that new entities can buy racetracks. We get that. There is nothing more important to myself, I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners, than us trying to figure out a year-round meet that likely won't happen now in the state. I can speak for myself and that the commission as a whole has bent over backwards to try to bring those things to light so that we can make this work. It's disappointing that it's not going to, but the fact that we could possibly not enforce the law as far as this goes is really disappointing to me. So that's what I'll say about that. Before I make a motion, I'll open the floor to my commissioners. Commissioner York?
The only thing I wanted to add, Commissioner Coolidge, Chair Coolidge, to what you said is everything that we've been presented with to date is all about the future and what might happen or what might not happen. And I think it's very hard to make sound decisions based on what might happen or what might not happen. So we just need to focus on what the statutes allow us to do and don't allow us to do.
Agreed. Otherwise, I'll make a motion to direct the department to issue notice to revoke Arizona Downs' permit.
I second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner or Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will take the roll call. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Abstain.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 3 yeses, 1 abstain. Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move down to B4, the Rito Park Racing Inc. is requesting.
Could I get some clarification of what that means?
So you can get that clarification from the department. We will be issuing a notice to revoke your permit, and you will have the appropriate steps to appeal and present to the commission at a later date.
That's what I was trying to find out.
Thank you.
Do we still have a permit?
You will be issued a notice, but you still have a permit yet.
Thank you.
Going back to 4 is Rito Park Racing Inc. requesting dark day simulcast approval for Saturday, May 2023. Getting people's phones. Mr. Duncan, looks like we have everything in order here unless there's something I'm not seeing.
Yes, Chairman, that is correct. Everything should be in the packet.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and move that we approve the dark day simulcast for Saturday, May 6th for Rito Park.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner French Contreras. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York.
Yes.
With a total of 4 yeses, thank you. That motion passes.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move down to 5A, which I will table contingent upon 5B, or excuse me, contingent upon B3. We'll drop down to 5B for Turf Paradise, 1 through 16. Mr. Duncan, any additions, or I saw one last minute one that was sent. Any others that you would flag on our list?
Not under the 5112U, Chairman. It'll be under the IHA.
Tabled it. We
Okay.
don't have any of those facts. We don't have
They just
Kentucky.
Mr. Author, go ahead.
So did you make a decision to not approve the signals that we applied for?
Contingent on the notice to revoke, we're going to table that item.
So what about the, without those signals, we can't run an OTB system, nor can we run the Kentucky Derby at our OTBs while you're considering and while our hearing is pending. So you're basically deciding in advance of the hearing.
Why don't I move to go into executive session?
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a second.
Thank you. The motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner French Contreras. I'll take the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York.
Yes.
With a total of 4, thank you. That motion passes. We move into executive session. Would you like for me to take roll call?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Coolidge,
Present.
Vice Chair Olson,
Present.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Here.
Commissioner York.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. It is now 11:36 a.m. and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Commissioner Olson, do you want to announce your conflict?
Yeah, I just want to, for the record, I did not participate in that executive session. We determined because it overlapped with the prior potential conflict, it was best not for participation. So I just wanted to disclose that for everyone listening in. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to move back up to B5A. Mr. Duncan, is there anything else in our packet that is a last minute added or anything?
Mr. Chairman, not for any items in
112.
Yeah, none under the 112.
Appreciate it. Any questions for my commissioners? I'll move that we conditionally approve Arizona Downs 1 through 13 contingent on the notice to revoke Arizona Downs permit hearing. Should the hearing indeed move forward to revoke the Arizona Downs permit, these agreements will turn off accordingly.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Just to the extent it relates to the prior potential conflict, I'll abstain.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 3 yeses and 1 abstain. Thank you. That motion passes.
We go down to B5. Mr. Duncan did note that there were no issues in the 5112 area, but I'll open it up to my commissioners for any questions or comments or motions. Otherwise, I'll move that we approve Turf Paradise's 1 through 16 simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner French Contreras. I will take the roll call. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4 yeses. Thank you. That motion passes.
Dropping down to 5C for Rito Churchill Downs. Looks like we have all the paperwork in order for this. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll move that we approve Rito's Churchill Downs simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4 yeses. Thank you. That motion passes.
Drop down to 6A for Arizona Downs. Mr. Duncan, do we have any additional complete as late minute completes for this?
Mr. Chairman, under B6A for Arizona Downs, there is no additional information.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to move that we conditionally approve Arizona Downs 1 through 13 contingent on the notice to revoke Arizona Downs permit hearing and that they submit all the additional paperwork to the department. Should the department find it adequate, they can move that forward. If the hearing does provide that we remove the Arizona Downs permit, these signals will turn off accordingly.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Abstain.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 3 yeses and 1 abstain. Thank you. That motion passes with conditional approval.
Thanks. We'll go down to 6B. Mr. Duncan, I think Turf Paradise had a late minute complete on this.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I do have a update under item B6B, number 14, Finger Lakes. All IHA documents have been turned in. So that would make items 1 through 4 and item 14 complete.
Thank you, sir. I'll move that we approve Turf Paradise's Belmont, Evangeline Downs, Emerald Downs, Woodbine, and Finger Lakes.
Second.
Thank you. With the motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York, I will take the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4 yeses. Thank you. That motion passes.
I'll also move that we conditionally approve Turf Paradise's Delta Downs, Belterra Park, Fairmont Park, Hastings Park, Horseshoe, Jack Thistledown, Louisiana, Century Mile, Churchill Downs, Maryland Jockey Club, and Mountaineer Park, contingent upon they submit the appropriate paperwork and leave it to the department to expedite the approval so that the permittee doesn't see a delay.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4 yeses. Thank you. That motion passes with conditional approval.
Dropping down to 6C, I will move that we conditionally approve Rito's Church Downs permit, contingent they submit the appropriate paperwork and leave it to the department to expedite the paperwork so the permittee doesn't see a delay.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Chair Coolidge and a second by Commissioner York. I will call the roll. Chair Coolidge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson,
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
with a total of 4 yeses. Thank you. That motion passes with conditional approval.
Thank you, ma'am. Dropping down to the track safety report, Dr. Gale, are you available?
Yes, thank you, Chair Coolidge, Commissioners. I've got a number of items to go over. The first one I'll address is that some folks may be aware that the Horse Racing Integrity Safety Authority drug testing organization did come to Turf Paradise and institute their protocols starting March 27th. That was the effective date of the rules, FTC rules approving the HIWU program, which is the drug testing arm of HISA. So we did not have an agreement between the state and HISA, so they brought in their own staff and tested on the 27th, 28th, and 29th the thoroughbreds. On March 29th, there were 5 quarter horse races, so myself and my assistant were on hand to do the testing for those races. Later that week, there was a challenge, a procedural challenge in court by the National HBPA that the FTC did not follow a 30-day grace period, and so delayed the implementation of the drug testing rules until May 1st. So myself and my assistant have returned to our testing duties, And what happens on May 1st at this point is uncertain. Again, their rules should go into effect. Whether or not they decide to staff the test barn, I don't know quite yet. So that's item number one. Again, regarding HISA, the void claim rule went back into effect, and there have been some claims voided in the last month. I will try to present a summary of those actions at the next meeting. And I also will try to present some information on vet list, horses that have been on the vet list trying to work, some that are able to work their way off, and then others that fail to meet the criteria to return to racing. On pre-race examinations for the last 6 weeks, Dr. Stephen Day has been helping. He's been doing about half of the exams. This has allowed me more time to review the risk factors so that we're able to, again, focus more attention on horses that may be at greater risk of injury. And even in the last week or so, I've been able to include previous exam findings on horses that are known to have physical findings that need to be reviewed or we should be aware of just in case changes occur. And again, with 2 vets performing the examinations and having feel a card of maybe 65, 70 horses on a given day, we're definitely able to get through the whole field with thorough exams, including palpation and flexion of the front limbs, as well as assessing the horses on the jog, assessing their soundness. There have been a higher number since Dr. Days joined of horses being scratched on pre-race exam. And I think that has helped in the numbers I'm going to go over regarding breakdowns and fatalities. Regarding that, I'll review the individual tracks first. Sonoyta, the Cochise County Fair down in, I'm sorry, I said Sonoyta, it's Douglas. The Cochise County Fair in Douglas ran over the past weekend, and they had 32 thoroughbred starts. I didn't count the quarter horse starts, but they had 0 breakdowns and really no injuries. So they had a successful meet. The Rito meet that ran for 9 weeks had only 1 thoroughbred breakdown and 1 quarter horse breakdown, both of which were in March. So their rate per 1,000 for the meet is 1.91. That's a tremendous, I'm sorry, I recalculated it. It's 1.66 through April. 1.91 was through March. So again, that's a big improvement on last year with only 1 fatality as opposed to 4 racing thoroughbreds last year. And again, a credit, I believe, to the veterinarians they had on staff, the use of students in assisting with the examinations. And again, I will try to present some information on how many horses they scratched for being lame at the next meeting. Regarding Turf Paradise, the 12-month rate is 2.11 per 1,000, and the current meet is 2.14, so that seems to be pretty consistent. And the 12-month rate then for the entirety of the state is 2.1 breakdowns per 1,000. We did get down to 1.94 through February, so just a slight uptick there. The Jockey Club did release their updated figures on the national rate in March for the year 2022, and that figure is 1.25 fatalities per 1,000. And that is what I have. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the input there. Any questions for my commissioners? I appreciate it, Dr. Gale. Mr. Duncan or someone from the department, do you want to give us the overview of anything you have on your end?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Turf Paradise replaced a lot of their railing that was requested by HISA. I also believe you were sent that. I believe you were sent that in your packet or individually. So I was going to let Mr. Francia elaborate on those repairs, if you'd like him to do so, since him and HISA were under a contract.
Yes, sir. We will address that in the permittee reports. Director Casillas, any updates on the budget report?
We have Latrina Rosemont as our new comptroller that will be providing the budget report.
Mr. Chair, if I may, for the record, my name is Aiden Fleming with the Arizona Department of Gaming. I'm one of the assistant directors. Latrina and I were going to tag team this. The finance division had asked me to preempt their finance report with a little bit of background for the commission, just so you can better understand the buckets that go into funding the commission and sorry, the division of racing as well. Sorry if you hear a little hoarseness in my voice. I'm still dealing with some allergies, but shouldn't be an issue. So I wanted to take a minute before getting into the levels of the account and handing it over to Latrina, just to chat about how the racing division is funded and what goes into that every year. So the racing division is funded by 3 buckets. The first bucket is a 2% live tax on live races that happen in the state of Arizona. The second bucket is what we call the RWA, which is the racing wagering assessment. The racing wagering assessment is the lion's share and the lifeblood of what funds the division of racing. And I'll go into that in a little bit, but getting to our third bucket, obviously licensing fees. The division licenses over a dozen different categories, and there are fees assessed at different rates to provide for those categories. So talking about the budget overall, these 3 budgets work in tandem to create our total budget for the year. And in FY23, that was $2.3 million. About $1.6 million of that in prior years has come through the RWA. So the RWA is the racing wagering assessment is a piece of that parimutuel pool, and how much of the parimutuel pool actually goes to funding the division. And you can see at the bottom there that RWA is at 0.5%. Now, something happened in racing in the year 2017. In that fiscal year, a huge change occurred. So prior to 2017, the Racing Commission actually set the RWA percentage. And that was based in rule. The RWA percentage increased and lowered based on live racing going on. So the commission would set a higher rate for the division of racing when live racing was occurring to make sure we covered costs and additional personnel. When there was dark days, obviously, the commission would lower that rate, obviously, in the summer. Since 2017, actually, there was a budgetary change. There's session law every single year now that is put into the state budget. And the line item basically makes that percentage of the RWA static at 0.5. So since 2017, we've been stuck at 0.5%. And so that's taken away a little bit of that flexibility the commission had prior, but it gave some stability to the tracks about what they were paying year in and year out. So that's a really important distinction, I think, that the Racing Commission needs to know when you're looking at our budgets and going back in time and seeing that fluctuation. Obviously, that being the largest piece, it is in there again this year. The budget, hasn't come out yet, but as in prior years, there is a line item that keeps it at 0.5%. And these three buckets, like I said, working in tandem, create what the department has. I want to point out one other thing, and this is just for the public and for your own edification. I'm going to link in the chat that's the appropriations report. This is a really good resource that I think that commissioners can use at a glance to understand racing and the department at large. It talks about, in plain English, about the different buckets and the line items that the racing division deals with. There's tons of additions and subtractions and things that go on. So if the commission has any questions going forward about the RWA, where are we at? Why are our levels this way? What does this mean? Please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to come back and dig into any part of the division's budget that you would like, from a policy perspective. What did it look like historically? How are other states funded? Other states are funded very differently. There's a slew of different jurisdictions that fund in separate ways. So if you want to ever dig into that, I'm happy to come back and give a more thorough presentation. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if there aren't any, I would hand it over to Latrina to talk about the actual levels of our budget and what finances see.
Thanks, Aiden. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Latrine. Maybe you're on mute. Aiden, you might be carrying both sides of the water here, bud.
No problem, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to step in.
Appreciate it.
So looking at the appropriation, I think of when I look at budgets, I always think of three things. We think of appropriation. Next to that number, you have cash and cash on hand, and then you have our spend. This chart shows all three. If you look at our trend, that line represents the spend of where we're at, the amount encumbered, and the amount spent, and our track line. So if we're above that, we're over our budget. That trend line is what we set for all of us. So you can see actually racing has been very judicious this last fiscal year. We stayed within our budget. We've encumbered up to our limit, but not surpassed it. And that monthly appropriation, how I think of appropriation is our credit card limit, right? The state sets our credit card limit, and that's what sets the line. So what we're doing is we're trying to make a burn to reach that limit by the end of the year. Currently, our racing division, and you can ignore that GM 2556, that's just a finance fund that we use. But that burn is on track. We're actually a little underspend. So right now, barring any last minute, jolts, we are on a good trajectory, and the account is healthy. We can go to the next slide. So the other thing I want to talk about is cash on hand. So we talked about our credit card limit. We talked about our burn in the last slide. This slide talks about where we are on cash on hand, and it's very important for state agencies to actually what I call kind of a Goldilocks zone. No state agency wants to keep too much cash on hand. Usually the legislature will look at that and they'll say, that seems like they're keeping too much. We better sweep that fund or change their funding structure because they're keeping too much. If you have too little, you can't actually carry out your duties. So this fund shows the health of that. That green zone is what we like to operate in. We're a little above. So with cash on hand, we're in a good spot. And And obviously, we track this month to month. We have monthly finance meetings to talk about the health of each of our funds. But as of right now, we've worked, I know I can say this, that the racing division in particular has worked extremely hard to work with the personnel and all of the changes with HISA coming on board about things shifting around. And they've been very judicious about how they spend and making sure we have enough cash on hand to carry out our duties. So right now, the racing cash balance is also in a healthy spot. Next slide. So this talks about the buckets that I discussed earlier, and it shows how much we're taking from each bucket. As you can see, the RWA is that lion's share, that 1.2. The parimutuel tax, although we do run year round, it's only 2% on the live wagers that are happening at the track. So it's not touching any of those simulcast wagers. So it's a significantly lower amount. So when we really talk about budget, you should really hone in on the RWA and that rate. Licensing fees, obviously they should just pay for themselves. But you can also see in that breakdown of the fiscal year to date, we're paying most of what we have almost exclusively in payroll. There are a couple of oddities in racing that I will point out. Number one is the Breeders' Awards at $187,500. This is also a change that happened in 2017. Breeders' Awards used to come from the general fund. In 2017, that actually switched over to where the department is paying for Breeders' Awards out of the RWA. So that comes out of our budget. It's not a regulatory cost, so that's why I mention it, but it is an additional cost to the department. One other slight change is in 2015, when the department assumed the racing, when we absorbed, racing and boxing MMA, they came as a package. So when they came in, boxing MMA acts as a sub account to the racing account. So for example, boxing MMA does their work, and if they run out of cash, they rely then on the RWA and the racing fund. Right now, I can say that boxing MMA is healthy and they have not had to do that. But I just want to mention that as another, an oddity, I would say. When you're not spending money on regulatory costs for racing, I like to mention it so you are aware. Next slide. I think that might be
all the
it,
slides,
Mr.
Aiden.
Chair. Yeah. All right, I did my best. I hope that was good. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you again. Any questions for my commissioners? Okay. I don't believe Mr. Guessman is on the line, but I'll for a second. Okay. We'll drop down to permittee reports.
Chairman Coolidge,
Yes, sir.
this is Brian. Leroy did send in the report that he was going to give,
Yes,
and
sir.
he would like someone to go ahead and read it. I believe I sent that to you guys this morning or yesterday, and I'll be more than happy to read that if you'd like.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. The updates on the cases involving HISA have been slow coming, but there has been a lot of activity recently. The HPPA received an injunction issued Friday, the 31st, which stopped the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act from implementing and enforcing its anti-doping and medication control, the rules for 30 days. Additionally, a new case has been filed in the Eastern District of Arkansas, which is in the 8th Federal Circuit. A new case challenging constitutionality was also filed in Oklahoma, which is in the 10th Circuit. Thus, at present, there are 6 cases challenging the constitutionality of HISA. Mixed in with the cases were some temporary restraining orders being filed as well. Many of you have also read on Friday the 7th, the Amarillo case filed on behalf of multiple Texas tracks. which we referred to as case number 4 in Lubbock, was transferred to Judge Hendricks, who presides over our original case, case number 1, to ensure consistent rulings. Judge Hendricks, upon receipt of the case, issued an order denying a temporary restraining order motion from the plaintiffs. It is important to note, nothing in this order is determinative of our case. There are some comparisons to be made. On the standard of review, Judge Hendrick notes a preliminary injunction is, quote, an extraordinary remedy, and, quote, the decisions to grant a preliminary injunction is to be treated as the exception rather than the rule. Our team at Liberty Justice Central feel we will face the same burden in our case to show a preliminary injunction is warranted. Another similar point to bring up is the court dispels the argument the authority is on the verge of bankruptcy. The judge notes there is no evidence in the record for this, which is probably accurate. We know they're running on loans, but we don't really have any indication whether there's reason to believe those loans will run out or how the revenues compare to their loans. Thus, we should not expect it in our case either. Also frustrating that the judge dismisses the quote, horsemen's are modest of means argument. The authority has introduced evidence that purses are going up, so we don't think this one will be a winner for us. An additional point to note, the court is skeptical of the claim about investigations and enforcement causing irreparable harm. Of course, this is a problem for horsemen, not racetracks, who fill this temporary restraining order. But even for horsemen, we haven't put forward any evidence that the authority is undertaking numerous invasive, unjustified investigations at this point. However, I want everyone to know where it seems Judge Hendricks is leaning, and also know we clearly expect him to rule on all of this promptly. April 12th, Judge Hendricks, our judge in Lubbock, Texas, presiding over our case number 1, issued an order setting an in-person hearing on Wednesday, April 26th in Lubbock, Texas. Regardless of how Judge Hendricks' ultimately rules, the matter will be then taken back up to the Fifth Circuit 3-panel led by Judge Duncan. The panel will either rehear the case or may send it to the U.S. Supreme Court. I will update you later when we have more news. And that is all that Leroy has sent us.
Thank you, sir. We drop down to American Greyhound Racing and permittee reports.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Aaron Feinberg for American Greyhound Racing. We have no update this month. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arizona Downs. County Fairs. Reed's Park. Turf Paradise. Mr. Mayor, you want to touch base on some of the items that Mr. Duncan noted?
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. Good morning, Commissioners and Mr. Casillas. I think where we left off the last meeting, the Commission wanted to be apprised of the rail situation, which HISA was concerned with. We are now in compliance. HISA sent out a Mark Guilfoyle, and Mr. Guilfoyle is the Director of Stewarding and also the State Relations Commission relations. He handles that. He was here for several days, and during that time, all the focus was addressed on the rail to get it to what they wanted. And in fact, on March 31st at 9:10 in the evening, we were in the parking lot, and he was satisfied with what we had done. With one exception, he wanted the new panels that we put in to be painted prior to racing the following day. I gave you my words that would be done, and it was. And since then, HISA has sent a letter that Turf Paradise is now in compliance as far as the rail is concerned. And I wanted to update the commission on that. When live racing resumes here on Saturday, that will mark the 9-day countdown. Hard to believe, but 9 live days of racing will be left until the conclusion of the meet on Kentucky Derby Day, May the 6th. And if the commission has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
None here. Appreciate the update as far as the cleanup and equipment fixes there.
You bet, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Author, I see your hand raised. You want to give us your permit?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was otherwise preoccupied. I just want to thank the commission for their considered approach today. We'll respond timely, and we think we have a good case. So other than that, there's not a lot going on. I would like to make one clarification, if I may, and that is with respect to meet dates, and Mr. Sims concerned that he doesn't have to run if we don't run. Again, we're talking fiscal year. So he's got July of 23 through June of 24. That fiscal year, if he doesn't run, he loses a permit, just as we should lose our permit if we don't run fiscal year 24 also. That's going to be part of our position. The permits are granted on a fiscal year basis. So, but anyway, we're not in any way trying to get a better deal than Turf Paradise has. They would have the exact same limitations, but more on that later. Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Thank you, sir. Mr. Weiss, do you have your hand raised as well?
Yes, please. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, sorry, I've been booted a few times from this meeting, so I just wanted to give the Rito report if that's okay. And fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't booted again. So Rito did just conclude its meet, our 18-day race meet. We do plan to continue to keep running in Arizona, as we just had our 80th year anniversary. And I'm going to say this was a banner year. We had record attendance. We had record handle. We had accolades all over the place. Janet Van Bieber, the chief racing officer of the American Quarter Horse Association, flew in to present us with a plaque honoring us for our 80th year. Speed Horse Magazine not only did a very positive multiple-page article on us, but they put Rito on the front cover of this widely distributed magazine. To keep things going, New York Racing included us in a national pick 5. So that was a national and even international wager that had New York, Oaklawn, New York, Oakland, and then Oaklawn, and then finished with Rito. So this really shows what the country thinks of what we do to give back to the industry. I had over 20-something students from the university, but this year was different because it wasn't just racetrack industry program students. Besides working in the racing office and television, we had students handling journalism, doing the photography. We had a young budding announcer who's actually filled in at Turf a few times. And we had students working directly with the veterinarians in our equine wellness program. 2 students walking with the vet, doing pre-race checks and collecting data on each horse. And another one who ran that Stride Safe program that we also got a lot of national attention to because it was very successful. I do want to make a comment, not to rebuttal any at all with the racing breakdowns, but we did lose 1 quarter horse, and this horse appeared to pass before the starting gate even opened. We spent the money for a necropsy and no bones were broken. It seems like it just was natural timing, natural causes in that sense. And the 1 thoroughbred did not actually break down. He collapsed from exhaustion and still managed to walk into the trailer and go back to the barn. So one more quick thing, if I can have another second. There is something that will be announced tomorrow. I was told to hold off, but because of this meeting, I wanted to do it. But USA Today did a poll of favorite racetracks in the country, and Rito not only finished in the top 10, but it's going to be announced tomorrow that we finished 3rd in USA Today of favorite tracks to go to. I mean, we're an old place, we're a beat up place, but the atmosphere is just amazing. So I just want to give thanks to everybody that helped us, from the Arizona Department of Gaming, HPBA, Leroy, Quarter Horse Association, Lloyd Loretta, our officials, Debbie, the students, Robert Hartman and Phil O'Hare from Racetrack Industry Program at the U of A, our employees and fans, and a reminder that the Rito Park Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and our goal is to keep this going and keep it a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Ms. Valenzuela, I see your hand raised. Do you have a permittee report?
Hi, sorry, when you called on county fairs, I had stepped away from my desk. Nikki Valenzuela, we just ran the Douglas meet. And I just want to say that it was very successful. We had no breakdowns. Basically, it was a lot of fun. I think that's what they come to the fairs for. So we hope to continue with the help of the state. Our purse structure was down because we didn't really get any help this year, but we hope to continue, especially with the state of everything that's going on here in Arizona. Just want to say the state was easy to work with this year, and we hope to continue, like I said. Thank you.
Appreciate the update, ma'am. Go to the optional industry stakeholder association updates, Arizona Counties Racing Association. Arizona Quarter Horse Racing Association. Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Association.
Yes, this is Wendy. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Wendy McCumber, and I'm a representative from the Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Association. I would like to start by saying thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak. This Saturday, April 22nd, we are having our annual Breeders Festival. This is such a great day to honor our Arizona breds. The first post time is at 12:55. The ATBA will be having our annual membership luncheon at 12:30. We would like to say thank you to all of the owners and trainers for entering the races. We would like to say thank you to the breeders for believing in Arizona breds and breeding them. We would like to thank everyone for making this day possible. And we hope to see all of you at the races on Saturday to honor our 2022 champions and watch a great day full of Arizona bred racing. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Great update. How about the HBPA? And Jockeys Guild. Okay. Any commissioners have anything to add on future agendas?
No, not for me.
No, thank you. None for me, thanks.
Daryl here with the Jockeys Guild.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Daryl here, Western Regional Manager for the Jockeys Guild. The jockeys are very happy that Turf Paradise managed to repair the inside rail and made it safer. So we're grateful and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. I only have one person signed up to speak to call to the public, Mr. Nolan. Mr. Nolan, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me so I can move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First, I'd like to start by saying we need a lot more transparency. This meeting is stating facts that we're on the brink of extinction. That transparency should include these meetings being open, no more Zoom meetings. Why we're not in a public forum? Secondly, can we get some legislative updates? It's a turmoil there. It's been the legislature that's been saving us in the past couple of years with different pieces of legislation for funding, protection of due process rights and concerns. I have some other concerns I signed up concerning the budget. Commissioner York, I think you had asked for other budget information concerning, let's say the legal fees that are being paid in court cases. I looked at that one video there. It showed $3,500. I believe who's paying the legal fees on the case against the commission that's now been reappealed? I'll get to that point about a commission case still being litigated. Commissioners, your job's very difficult. You signed up with application with boards and commissions. You were appointed by a governor. You were vetted by a committee and Senate, approved by a Senate, and then you took an oath and empowers you to do what's right by the people of the state of Arizona. What I'm hearing is you standing by while we're on the brink of extinction. I think that Commissioner York, when you mentioned that there's too much skepticism, Arizona Downs being purchased and under contract, these contracts, these things take time, due diligence. No one can guarantee that these sales will go through. And if they don't, where are we then? We need to be a little ahead of in case they don't happen without letting our industry go extinct. With that said, we have some examples around us in this community here in the Valley of the Sun of what regulatory powers have done to protect the people in the industries in which they've been empowered as commissions to do. Let me give you an example. An entertainment sports venue, a person was fined $1 million, suspended for a year, Mr. Sarver with the NBA Commission. Then the new people that are coming in, they had to be vetted by the commission in order to buy this facility. The reason I bring that up is when Turf Paradise was purchased, there was an application that was provided by the permits, and that application was less than truth that Mr. Sims was suspended for a year. So when a sale goes through, the commission has many powers. What are those powers? I gave you an example of the NBA. Let's give you another example of another entity putting people in harm's way that's right here in the Valley in the last 2 years. We had the Corporation Commission take control of the Johnson Utilities in the Santan Valley because of sewer backups and they didn't provide. The people were in harm's way. That commission took it, put it in receivership. A Texas company came in to run it under the jurisdiction of the Corporation Commission. We have to protect what we got, not on what's a hopeful skeptic view of these sales going through. This is a historic racing industry, $100 million agricultural business. We need to fight for what we have. What needs to happen is this permittee has proven he can't run a racetrack. It's in deplorable condition. Now he wants to sell it and have it developed. I think we need to save it. I think that the commission has the powers to do so. We just have to have them move forward and ask, what are your rights to protect the people of the state and this $100 million industry? Thank you.
Mr. Braddock? Mr. Braddock, you're on mute if you're planning on speaking. Okay. Moving down to the announcements. The next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, May 11th, 2023, likely via Google Meet, and is subject to change based on a quorum. Otherwise, I would hear a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I'll second.
Thank you. With the motion by Commissioner York and a second by Commissioner French Contreras. I will take the roll call. Chair Coolidge.
Yes.
Vice Chair Olson.
Yes.
Commissioner French Contreras.
Yes.
Commissioner York.
Yes.
Thank you. The time is now 12:24 p.m. and this meeting has adjourned. Thank you. If everyone can please exit out the meeting.